Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Mark, this is Spiguyver Backpacking. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about our trekking poles. So I would say that the majority of the hikers and backpackers that I pass out on the trail are all using trekking poles. And for good reason. You know, they're so prevalent out there right now that a lot of gear manufacturers have actually started to incorporate them into the design of their gear. You know, backpackers are using them, so why not save weight and sell your tent as the most lightweight tent out there by offering it with no poles at all and require that they use trekking poles. Some of them use one, some of them use two, but it's a way for them to lower the weight and you're already carrying it, so now something you're carrying becomes dual use, which is something that's pretty cool and pretty important. So the advantages of using trekking poles may seem really obvious to you and I, but I'm sure there are several people out there that, some maybe that are even watching this, that are wondering, why do I need trekking poles? Just seems like another piece of equipment that I've got to go out and buy, that I'm going to carry, it's extra weight. But there's a reason. I mean, there really is. And there are huge advantages to it. First off, for me personally, they help me get into a rhythm. You know, going uphill or on those long flats, just being able to plant the poles and get into a rhythm, I kind of get into a zone. Really on climbs, what it helps me do is I match my breathing to placing my poles, and it actually helps me get into a rhythm that I can sustain throughout the entire climb. You know, within reason, depending on how steep it is, but it really helps me get into a rhythm that I can just maintain and flow going uphill, which, you know, I know that there are some people out there that really like going uphill with them because they can use them for a little bit extra force, you know, use their arms a little bit to go uphill. And while that does help a little bit, for me, it's more that rhythm thing that helps. But where it really comes in handy and comes in clutch, a lot of times on downhills, you know, I've started moving a little bit quicker on the downhills. I find that moving quicker actually saves my knees. But placing those poles really does help, that when you misstep, when you slip, when you hit a rock that was hidden or whatever, rather than busting your ass, these things are actually keeping you up because now you've got more points of contact on the ground and you can stop yourself from falling. And that's a big deal. You know those days when it's damp outside, a blanket of fallen leaves all over the ground, and you're trucking down the trail, and maybe it's a slight decline, and you're in a wooded forest, and you step on a hidden root. Those roots can be slick as snot, especially when they're covered by damp or wet leaves. And that's a recipe for hitting the ground. Fortunately, if you've got some trekking poles and you've got them planted, bang, you slip, you catch yourself, and you just keep on trucking. If you don't have those, you're on the ground. So for me, that's definitely a big enough advantage, a big enough reason for me to have them, that peace of mind. Now, there are so many choices of trekking poles out there. Which one is right for you? Well, like a lot of things, the true answer is it depends. It really depends on several factors. Let's talk about the different variability, the different variations of trekking poles, what they are and what they mean to you. All right, so I've got a list here of really what can vary between trekking poles just to show how big of a variety of things are out there. So material, you can have carbon, you can have aluminum, you can have some different aluminum alloys. You know, how thick they go with the aluminum, how thick they go with the carbon also plays a factor. Fixed length or adjustable. If you know exactly what you need, the key is about a 90-degree bend in the elbow when standing on flat ground. The problem is if you have a fixed length and you're doing climbing or you're doing any long descents, there's no ability to adjust it to fit what you're doing. Now, because of that, some of them offer grip extensions, which is below the grip, you'll have a section of either foam, rubber, or cork that you can hold onto so that you don't have to adjust the pole. Telescoping or folding. So there are some out there that have like a line that goes all the way through them that they click apart and they fold. Most of those are not adjustable. However, there are some. I did test a set that were folding that also had a flip lock that you could adjust one of the sections. So for the most part, most of the folding ones are going to be either a fixed length or minimal adjustability, whereas telescoping usually have, you know, the flip locks or twist locks, and they fold in, or they telescope inside of each other. For me, I really like the telescoping ones. I know a lot of people out there like the folding ones and think that they're easier. For me, the clean look of it's not just the look, it's the volume that they take up when they're compacted. You know, it's just the one shaft width, whereas if you've got the folded ones, you've got three pieces that are just kind of floppy there. Some of them have straps or something that you can wrap around them. But for me, I prefer the telescoping. I think it just works easier. The different locking systems, the twist locks or the flip locks, you can go either way. I mean, they all work, and all the companies out there have kind of refined them to the point where they're working pretty well. Baskets. Do they have baskets? Do you have normal baskets? Are they removable? Can you swap them out? You've got normal ones, you've got snow baskets. You can go with no baskets. I go with no baskets the majority of the time. The grip material. Is it a foam, an EVA foam material? Is it a cork? Or is it something like a rubber? So those are the different ones that you can get. The wrist strap that goes around your hand, which is extremely important. The wrist strap isn't just something so that you don't lose your pole. It actually gives you really good leverage if it's put on correctly. And so that's a whole nother talk and story. But yeah, make sure that you've got that so that you use it the way that you're supposed to. That's all. But some of them are really minimalist. Some of them are thicker. Some of them are easier to adjust than others. And so those are all factors that go into it. A shock absorber. Some of them have like a section that you'll twist, like a quarter turn to turn on and a quarter turn back to turn off, a shock absorber that a lot of people like when they're going downhill. It adds a little bit of shock absorption. But truly, if you have carbon or aluminum, it's going to provide some amount of intrinsic shock absorption just because of the material and the characteristics of those materials. Personally, I find the shock absorber to be a waste of money and added weight that isn't necessary. Weight is another big factor. So you're actually moving those with your arms all day long. You know, your shoulders can start to get sore if you're carrying ones that are just too heavy. But as you get lighter, the cost goes up. It's kind of one of those things that, you know, cheap ones are usually heavy, the heavy ones are usually cheap, and the light ones are usually expensive. So then there's the price. And so there's a wide range of pricing out there. I think you can get them on the market right now for, I think on Amazon you can probably find some right now for $19.95 or $19.99. And then you can go all the way up. I think the most expensive ones I saw on REI when I was just looking were $299, which that is a quite expensive set of poles. So what I have are kind of in the middle, and they happen to be a set of poles that my personal opinion right now is they're the best pole on the market. The best pole you can possibly get for your money right now. I've been using them for about 2 seasons. They've held up to the abuse. They've worked really well for me. So these are the poles that I use and I absolutely love. These are the Gossamer Gear LT5s, and it is a collapsible 3-piece carbon pole. It has twist locks. As you can see here, I have to twist them to extend them. They're extendable, 23.5 inches, the way that they sit here, or 60 centimeters. Fully extended, they're 51 inches or 130 centimeters, and I can adjust them anywhere in between. As you can see, they're completely closed up right now. I can open them all the way to 130, which is what I use when I put them over the top of my tarp. I hike with them at 120, and I've had them at variable heights for shelters that I've used. It has an EVA foam grip that really closely resembles cork. From looking at it, you would think it's cork. It's not cork. It very much has the feel of cork, with the one exception that when it gets wet, it does get slightly slipperier than cork does. It does not have the extension, has a pretty thin wrist strap that you go through like that and hold. You know, that's the one thing that I see way too many people doing wrong, is they're not using it right. So you go through the bottom and you hold it like that, and it gives you a lot of tension there and gives you more torque pushing down on it. And also, if you were to drop it, it's going to stay there. If you do it the other way and you drop it, it can go right through and you've lost it. But that's just one thing. Real easy to adjust. Just a little pull and adjusts. When you've got weight on it and you're holding it right, it definitely doesn't slip. I've never had a problem with it slipping, but it's real easy to adjust it when you need to make it bigger. What I do is I'll put my hand in there and then pull it tight, and now it's good. No shock absorber in here. Weight is 4.9 ounces or 139 grams per pole. And so that's an extremely lightweight set of poles. Has markings along the shaft so that you can set it exactly where you want it. I've never had it slip. I've never had to readjust it during the day because of it slipping and falling. So everything seems to work really well with these. You've seen them on all of my trips lately. I've tried throughout my hiking career, if you can call it a career, my time hiking in the last 20 plus years, 30, 40 years, I don't know. A lot of time hiking. I've used a lot of different trekking poles. I've used trekking poles from most of the major companies, and I've used trekking poles from a lot of smaller, less known companies like Faison and some of the others that like Tac Niner that I had. Some of them are really good. Some of them really suck. And then there's those that are in between. But of all of them that I've tried, this is the pair that I can see myself growing old with. This is the pair that I could see just staying with forever. What is it that I love about these that make me think that these are the best ones out there? The weight. I've talked about it before. There's something that I like that I've termed flickability, and it's when after you've pushed off with a pole and you're moving it forward, it's that how easy is it to flick it, with your wrist, flick that thing forward. And because of this lightweight, these are the most flickable poles I've ever used. The Faisons that I've got are very close, but these things are just super flickable, super easy. Second, durability. They, like I said before, they've stood the test of time with me. They've been out for about 2 seasons now. I don't baby them. I abuse them. Like I said, I've started to go a little bit faster downhill, and that's where I've actually snapped 2 different sets of poles. Is, as you're running, moving fast downhill, you plant a pole and then you go to move, and you've got so much momentum, you're not stopping on a dime. And so if a tip gets stuck between 2 rocks, or you plant it behind a rock and you move it forward, they have the ability to break. And so far, knock on wood, I have not broken these ones. And I have had them caught in some of those spots where you hear it pop and you're like, oh, it's got some scrapes on them. They've got some pretty good nicks on them, but no damage whatsoever. All right, talking about durability, if I was to actually break one of these poles, the great thing about it is that they are completely serviceable. And by that, I mean all the parts of this pole are replaceable. And if you were to go onto the Gossamer Gear website, let's say I broke this small part, because that's probably gonna be the part that's the most easy to break. As you can see, mine are pretty dinged up right here. Let's see, I'm gonna get it to focus on that. Yeah, so it's pretty dinged up, pretty scratched up, gouged up. But if I was to break this, I can separate just this section. And here's the locking section, the locking mechanism that's in there. And Gossamer Gear sells just this section, $35. If I broke this middle section, Gossamer Gear sells just this section, $35. If I broke this section or just tore up this handle, the strap was ripped and I didn't want to replace it, Gossamer Gear sells just this section, $35. So the ability to do that is is really, really nice. The tip does unscrew. This entire bottom section unscrews, and you can replace that as well. Fourth, and this is a positive that I'm also going to talk about in my criticism section, and that is the foam grip. So that foam grip is actually really comfortable. It fits my hand extremely well, and I really like the grip. Those are the things that I love about it. Well, let's talk about those things that aren't so great. Like I said, the foam grip, I really wish they had gone with a cork grip. Cork, when it's wet, is a whole lot more solid in the hand. I really like the feel of cork. And while these EVA foam handles do feel a lot like cork and they look like cork, and I think they did that intentionally, they're not cork. And I don't think that cork actually will stand the test of time as long as an EVA foam, and maybe that's why they went that route. But I would have preferred the real cork. The price. So while these are comparable to a lot of the high-end products that are out there, a lot of the high-end poles, they are quite expensive at $195. That's not a cheap set of poles by any means. The wrist straps. So I did say the wrist straps are minimal. For some, that may be a downside. Some people may find that silky texture not to be great. It may wad up. I have not had any of these problems, but I have heard of people having those problems. I've also heard of people having problems with them not staying tight, with them loosening as they're using them. I have never had the problem of mine loosening when I don't want them to loosen. I don't know, maybe some of them are routed through the locking mechanism wrong, and that's what's causing the problem. Or maybe people aren't using the wrist strap the way that they're supposed to, which may be a bigger part of the problem. The last piece, like I said, I may be switching out to some baskets, but for right now, I can only switch back to the normal baskets. I went on the Gossamer Gear website and I did not see any snow baskets. I'm gonna reach out to them to see if maybe they offer some. They're just not available on the site. So a snow basket is a little bit bigger and disperses the weight a little bit better as you're trekking through snow, especially through soft snow. So I wanted to get a set of those just to, have them as we're getting into the winter season. Overall, these are absolutely amazing poles. They're what I'll be using for the future. I don't see a reason for me to switch from these to anything else unless, down the road, Gossamer Gear decides they're no longer going to support them. They're not going to make replacement sections. But they've sold so many, and so many people have switched over to them and fallen in love with them. I can't see that happening anytime soon. Like I said, I've abused them and they've held up to it. And even though they're pricey, I think they're well worth that price. The durability has proven to be good, but if I break one, I can replace it. The lightweight, extreme lightweight of these things is just amazing. I can't say a whole lot more about them. I absolutely love them, and I think they're the best pole on the market for me at this point. Maybe they're the best ones for you. Like I said before, which one is the right one? It depends. Go through that list of the variables that I said and figure out what's important to you. Is price important to you? Is weight important to you? Is durability important to you? Is how it folds up important to you? Is adjustable length important to you? If you are going to use a shelter, you're going to want adjustable poles because depending on the ground, you're going to want to adjust it. So those are definitely things to think about. Hope I've given you enough to think about in here. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, any comments, leave them down below. Appreciate you guys checking this out, and I will see you down the trail.